What do you think of the Sydney nightlife?
Could be better.
Yeah, the boys, yeah, the girls, yeah, the Sydney.
My goal is to bring back this Sydney nightlife.
My name is Kim Hollingsworth. I'm a former sex worker. People probably know me from Underbelly.
The girl was dead and she had the leg of a chair through her eye and out the back of her head. What I knew of nightlife, it was never the same again.
Millions of people around the world live their entire lives looking forward to the weekend where they can go out and have a crazy time. Places like Miami, Vegas, Ibiza and London were all voted as having some of the best nightlife in the world. But there's one major city that exists which has quite the opposite. Sydney, Australia arguably has the worst nightlife in the world. Sydney is one of the most beautiful and livable cities on earth. And before the year 2012, Sydney was also known for its vibrant King's Cross area, which had a variety of nightclubs, bars, and was even world famous for hookers and brothels. However, on the 9th of July 2012, tragedy struck the city.
The 18-year-old was walking down the street chatting on his mobile phone when a stranger king hit him for no reason. Tom Kelly never regained consciousness,
prompting the New South Wales state government to impose tough new restrictions, which shattered Sydney's nightlife literally overnight. These new restrictions included people not being able to enter bars, clubs or pubs after 1:30 a.m, no shots allowed after midnight, last drink served at 3 a.m, just to name a few. Sydney's nighttime culture disappeared in the blink of an eye, forcing hundreds of businesses to shut, leaving young partygoers with nowhere to go. Tonight I went onto the streets of King's Cross in Sydney to find out where it all went wrong.
Alright, what's your name?
Sarah. Keone Fraser.
Okay. And what do you think of the Sydney nightlife?
It's so shocking. It's really upsetting.
I feel like in the US, there's more nights that we can go out and it's fun.
I think it's getting better. It's getting back slowly.
Mate, I grew up in the fucking 80s and 90s. We had so many opportunities. Now it's terrible.
It was really good back in the 90s when I was a little youngin.
I think you went out of the womb by then.
The cross was pumping.
How old were you in the 90s?
Oh, I was like...
I don't think you guys actually know what you're talking about because you guys were not even born back then, were you?
No, but listen, my story. The whole street used to punch on. You know what I mean? The whole
You used to punch on?
It used to be, yeah.
Before you were born?
I was the ball runner. And
you don't punch on no more? Oh, that was a solid one.
Fuck the lockout and fuck the fucking Sydney government.
No, that was too much.
to a certain degree, it was okay, but I mean, all they did was push everyone to the casino and they locked down all the clubs here.
It's probably a good thing, but it also just f***s up what everyone wants to do.
And what would you want to say to the government that are imposing all these laws?
I would say you're ruining Sydney. Why would any tourist want to come to Sydney and spend their money on our economy when you have Melbourne and Gold Coast and you have so many tourists who are shocked and appalled by our nightlife here?
Let the businesses thrive, man.
After hearing from the people of Sydney, I met up with a friend called Luke Lavidis, a well-known TikTok influencer trying to single-handedly revive Sydney's nightlife.
What King's Cross is lacking is feeling. It's lacking an experience. You've got to create that. My goal is to bring back this Sydney nightlife.
And what do you think actually happened to Sydney nightlife pre-lockout laws versus now?
Things were getting a bit too crazy and the government had to enforce something as a form of control, but I think they know they made a massive mistake and now they're trying to bring it back slowly. Now it's the community that's actually that's negative about the whole thing, so to change it around is a huge task.
What are you yourself trying to do in terms of revive Sydney and how are you trying to do that as well?
Bring back community, change the narrative. The narrative is that it's crap and it's shit. So I'm just trying to show people that there are good places to go out, and I think it's really important that we all get together and start to do something and change the mentality. That's where it starts, because the demand will be there once we change and start to go out.
As Luke and I walked down the streets of King's Cross, it brought back a lot of memories from when I was younger and used to come here. From thousands of people partying on a Friday night to now seeing it completely dead is definitely a shock.
I used to come every weekend. It used to be packed, full of people, very vibrant, things going on. But then obviously in 2013, the lockout laws came into play and
it was going a bit too crazy, and it's like with anything, because there's a certain point where it goes up and then just tips over the edge. And that was the tipping point.
Do you think the state government made the right choice?
Yes and no. I don't think they did, because of one thing. That they got to make it clear and make a statement. If they didn't do anything about it, it would have been a problem. But the fact they did something about it, it's been a problem.
It's weird being back here because I stopped going out, many years ago. Being here on a Friday night, what's the time now? It's like almost midnight right now, and there's just no one here. And the people that are out are dressed in kind of like casual clothes. No one's dressed up. No one's kind of like doing what they used to do. It's it's so strange.
Yeah, and people coming out now is probably like for a birthday or things like that. Before it was a culture to come out, people came out because it was the thing to do.
But like most clubs on a Friday here are closed.
Yes, they tried to stay open, over here, but there just wasn't enough foot traffic. On a Friday when you're paying your staff and security and everything like that, they end up losing. You can't just open your doors for, oh, maybe if, or what if.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
I hadn't been to King's Cross for a long time, and I could really see how much the area had changed. So I met up with a nightclub owner who explained how the lockout laws impacted her business and her life.
So my name's Chrissy. I'm the owner of KX Social Club and Chicane Sydney.
How old are you?
I'm 45.
You're 45.
I am, yeah.
Obviously, you know what happened in around 2013. Do you know anyone that had businesses during that time?
I do know a few people, and I know that obviously it pretty much destroyed their businesses. The patronage reduced quite heavily. Some people closed their doors. It sort of changed people's moods and attitudes towards the nightlife. A lot of people lost their jobs as well.
Did you see any businesses, get back up to the level that, they could have been pre-lockout?
Only a handful. I mean, few and far between. Yeah.
And so do you think there's any hope for, businesses wanting to start up again in this climate?
Look, as a business owner, yes, I'd like to think we're part of that sort of, rise and that kind of motivation to get Sydney nightlife back up. But, that the goal is just even on Bayswater Road, we're trying to get everything lifted again.
It seems behind me that, your nightclub is doing quite well, so...
Yeah, look, I mean, I wouldn't say quite well. We're just every night, every week, it's different. We're just pushing forward. We're hopeful. We're not giving up. And we're engaging with a lot of different promoters, different genres of music, different DJs, just to try and push the business along.
It was interesting to hear from the people that thought the lockout laws were harsh and unreasonable. But I wanted to hear from someone on the other side of the fence. So I met up with an infamous ex-prostitute who was open to sharing stories from her dark past with us.
My name is Kim Hollingsworth. I'm a former sex worker who joined the New South Wales Police, and people will probably know me from Underbelly, the Golden Mile.
What made you, convinced to become a prostitute?
I think it was emotional upheaval, and it was just a violent reaction. Had a bad boyfriend, caught him with a couple of hookers. I ended up working in a brothel. The men were mostly horrible. It was really hard work, and they would often ask for the youngest girl and the newest girl, and that was me. I was 21, but I looked about 14. Yeah, so I attracted a lot of really undesirable people.
And so I'm assuming you're very familiar with the King's Cross area?
I'm very familiar with King's Cross. This is my turf you're on right now.
And is there any chance you can maybe show us around?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, let's go. We're in the back streets of King's Cross, and this is called the Holiday Inn, and this is where it all started for me.
Okay, what happened?
Well, my boyfriend came up here. He actually had a stolen credit card, and he booked 2 hookers, and I walked in, and I guess the rest is history. The emotional impact of that will never leave me. Still remember the girls' faces, still remember what was happening, and he was having a great time, and I, of course, wasn't. This is the infamous Golden Apple.
Golden Apple?
Golden Apple. It was the first brothel I worked at.
And it's obviously not here anymore?
No, shut down, all boarded up, but it was very, very busy back then. I used to work with penthouse pets in there. One penthouse pet I worked with, her boyfriend bashed her to death. Yeah, nobody saw that. Everyone saw the glamour and the fancy dresses, and behind the scenes, it was very ugly. There were knives pulled, guns pulled.
Wow.
They would threaten you. So they used to come in here and just throw their guns on the floor.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
The cops?
Yeah.
Say that again?
The cops used to come here and just, rip off the belt and throw the load of guns on the floor, jump in the spa with us.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a typical shift back then.
So would they just come in on their shift, pretending like they were investigating something, or?
Yeah, sometimes the Vice Squad would come.
Okay.
And the Vice Squad would, you'd say your name was Mary Poppins, and they'd write down Mary Poppins, and that was it. And then they would pick a girl that they'd want to have sex with for free.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they were the police and they could sort of do what they wanted.
Yeah, that's right. It was a free-for-all. Back before I started working here, there was actually a girl killed in the spa room, and that was one of the rooms that I used regularly. Basically, a girl was in there booked for a service, and she didn't come out on time. Finally, they opened the door. There's no client in the room, but the girl was dead, and she had the leg of a chair through her eye and out the back of her head.
What?
Yeah. Just a young, naive girl working, doing her job.
Yeah.
And he killed her.
So yeah, I guess you can definitely summarise and say that King's Cross was a dark place back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very, very dark place back then. A lot of lost souls came towards this place, and a lot of them never left. It became quite a normal thing for girls to be dying and disappearing and found in dumpsters here and things like that.
Wow.
It became quite normal to us.
Wow.
You know, so when it was someone close to me, it was a different story.
And did you have any friends in the industry that died?
My sister died. She got into prostitution when she was very young, and she got hooked on heroin.
Wow.
As a terrible combination, drugs and prostitution.
Of course, yeah.
That's why prostitution and drugs just don't mix. They're always there, but you just, you've got to be very, very careful.
Hearing how Kim's life was before Sydney's nightlife laws changed made me realise the dark reality some people were living.
I really wanted to ask you what your thoughts are, surrounding Sydney nightlife as it is today. Do you see any positives of the way the lockout laws have turned out for the city?
The lockout laws at the time were politically correct, I guess, and much needed to teach everyone a lesson that alcohol-fueled violence would not be stood for. The guy that caused the lockout laws, he punched 4 people that night. It wasn't just the gentleman he killed. On the flip side of that being a good thing at the time was what happened was the violence went elsewhere. It wasn't just contained to King's Cross in the city anymore. It went to places like Newtown, Coogee, Bondi, things like that. So where you kind of quashed something, it sprung up elsewhere. Nightlife in Sydney was never the same. So hopefully now we have safety things in place where we can control alcohol-fueled violence and we can prevent people being killed, because that's really at the core of the problem, is that people were getting killed. They were just having a nice night out, and that's the serious side of it. But people did lose businesses and things like that. So I think it's time that Sydney started thinking again. We need to never forget Thomas, but we need to open up safely, and we need to bring back people to King's Cross. We need to bring back people to the CBD, and we need these nightclubs to be thriving again. We need it to be a good place to go out and enjoy ourselves.
I'm sure you've seen the prevalence of young females, or even people in general in this day and age, getting into things like adult content or OnlyFans, for example, or even just in general promiscuity on social media.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on those young people and where they're leading themselves into?
It's really concerning when I see prostitution made to look like a glamorous lifestyle, because honestly, behind the scenes, it is the ugliest lifestyle you could ever get involved in. Prostitution is an addiction. You'll make friends there. It'll become second nature to you. And you will love the money. The money's the big thing. I worked with girls who started working at 13. They used to come to the brothel in their school uniform and change and see clients and then go to school the next day. The odds are that if you go into prostitution clean, you will develop a drug habit in order to cope with the clients and the nature of the work. It is very hard work. It's very problematic. It's very difficult. And you're up against a guy who can be 10 times as strong as you, who wants you to do things you never dreamed of doing. Things like OnlyFans, it plants a seed in some people's minds where they think, well, okay, she's doing that, maybe I can get her to do this and make more money, things like that. So you become vulnerable and there's almost a spotlight shining on you, and you will think you're under control, but all it takes is one mistake and you can lose your life. There are laws now, but still that doesn't protect you from a maniac. The maniac doesn't care about legislation, all right? So don't think, oh, I can do this and I'll just charge them if they hurt me, or I'll get help. You won't be able to get help. You'll be pinned down and you'll be fighting for your life, basically. Don't think it won't happen to you, because it can, and it will. There's a lot of girls that end up dead and it's not in the news. We know about it, but the girls don't. It's a really problematic industry, but be very, very careful.
As my investigation of Sydney's once vibrant nightlife comes to an end, I'm hit with a mix of emotions. From the stories that Kim shared with me, to Luke and the club owner doing what they can to revive it, everyone has a different story and experience. I myself used to party every weekend. From being around people that drink and use drugs every weekend, to sleeping around like it's normal. All these things did was lead me into depression because I kept looking for that quick fix. Sydney's nightlife has taken some serious hits over the last decade, but is there any hope for the future? Could this be the start of a Sydney nightlife comeback? Make sure you guys comment down below your thoughts.